I'm in the why not both category. And I know that's probably not super popular.
The pipeline talk continues. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we've got more David Eby. This time he's become the laughing stock on multiple panels here on CBC of all places. The woke left broadcaster is laughing at David Eby for being such a toddler, throwing a tantrum on national television. Now all the pundits and lead journalists are having a good dig at this guy. Let's jump into this. First up, we got Mark Carney here in the UAE.
Did you bring up allegations, Sudan, with the president?
I'll say one thing that on that the president and I had a wide-ranging, long meeting, wide-ranging conversation.
I believe that question, the allegations, was about Sudan, so that's why he's talking about this. So for context here, we've got this article says, as criticism grows, is UAE ready to walk away from Sudan's RSF militia? The United Arab Emirates diplomatic machine is for the first time admitting to mistakes in its Sudan policy after suffering reputational damage over its support of the Rapid Support Forces, the Sudanese parliamentary group that has carried out mass pew-pewing events in this location since it captured the city late last month. Speaking in Bahrain on Sunday, Anwar Garash, the UAE's senior diplomatic envoy, said the UAE and others had been wrong not to impose sanctions on the instigators of the 2021 coup led by the RSF and the army that overthrew Sudan's transitional civilian government. They're caught supporting the bad guys here, and that's what Mark Carney's getting questioned about.
We talked about issues of global significance. We are partners. For example, UAE has been an important partner for Canada in helping us to deliver humanitarian aid for Gaza. We were partners with them in helping with Afghanistan. We did discuss the situation in Sudan. We did discuss the importance of the Quad process, which is the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the United States, and Egypt, and the role that they are playing, they need to play in establishing a ceasefire and peace, consistent with the comments and initiative of President Trump 2 days ago.
Were you?
So really, he doesn't seem to care about the whole situation with Sudan and UAE, the bad times allegations over there. So we've got some updates coming from Mark Carney's trip there. So he's posting this here in Abu Dhabi. We just launched negotiations towards free trade deal with the UAE. It would cut tariffs, eliminate red tape, and expand market access to the $700 billion economy for Canadian businesses looking to grow abroad. He wants access for Brookfield to do business abroad. And Ashley Burks, who's traveling with him here, senior reporter of CBC, posting this, Canadian PM Mark Carney tells a business audience in Abu Dhabi that a deal is being finalized worth more than $1 billion to expand the processing of critical minerals in Canada. So there it is. That's what we need to look into with Brookfield, Abu Dhabi. I'll be cross-referencing my chart here. We'll see what full details come from this. Meanwhile, in Canada, we've got this one from the Globe and Mail. Canada stuck in vicious circle of low productivity, says Bank of Canada. There's an easy solution to this. We already have pre-approved pipelines from the past. We could easily just get that up and running. Jumping over to the House, Pierre Poilievre brings up this exact issue.
And now let's move on to his costly agenda on pipelines. In June of 2014, the Conservative government approved a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific. November 29, 2016, this Liberal government canceled that pipeline, ordering the Energy Board to dismiss it. March 27, 2021, this current Liberal Prime Minister said that he supported canceling the pipeline. Will the Prime Minister admit that he was wrong, that his Liberal government was wrong, and the Conservatives were right? We need a pipe to the Pacific now.
Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Premier have publicly stated they're having productive discussions on advancing an MOU between Canada and Alberta. They have each stated those discussions are premised on building a pathways decarbonization project, strengthening the industrial carbon price, and receiving support from affected First Nations and jurisdictions. When the Prime Minister and the Premier are ready to make an announcement, they will to all Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Well, we're hoping the Prime Minister will announce that he was wrong and that the Liberal government was wrong to kill the Northern Gateway pipeline that had been approved back in 2014. 9 years have since been lost after the Liberal government blocked it. However, they also put in a ban on shipping Canadian energy off the northwest coast of BC. So if there's a pipeline, while the Liberal ban remains in place, it would have to be a pipeline to nowhere. So will the Prime Minister admit that the Liberal government was wrong to ban Canadian energy shipping and scrap the ban so that we can pipe our product over to Asia?
The Honourable Government House.
Mr. Speaker, in those long, barren Harper years where this member was a minister, the only pipeline that got built was the pipeline full of hot air that led to nothing, not a single energy exporting tidewater piece of energy.
Well, what are they cheering about? We've lost billions of dollars. Like, these idiots are beyond stupid. They know what they're doing here. They know they're destroying our country, but they're enriching themselves in the process. These politicians should all be thrown out of office.
Infrastructure was ever constructed under a conservative government. We've built one. You just heard the minister talking about a process on another. Mr. Speaker, you want to vote for energy security. You want to vote for energy exports. You want to vote for major projects and opportunity in this country. You should cast a Liberal vote.
We've seen this before. Stephen McKinnon, he raises his voice, tries to hide lies with a big bolsterous appearance. The record speaks for themselves. I mean, we never used to, just think of this, we never used to have Canadians sleeping in tents, and now it's common everywhere. That should be enough for everyone to not vote for the Liberal Party ever again. Whether someone wants to vote for NDP or Green or Conservative, this should at least wake up Canadians to never vote for Liberals again. Yet we've got so much of our population head in the sand, does not care that they're participating in the destruction of Canada. So jumping over to the power panel here, we got Lisa Raitt here.
Tough to get to a place that works with Daniel Smith, it seems. So I don't know if they should be at the table right now or not at the table right now. But what do you make of how the process here?
Well, to see the obvious East Coast kind of phrase on it, it's the price of being part of a confederation, quite frankly. I think there will be a discussion, obviously, with British Columbia at some point in time. But the main crux of the conversation has to be between the federal government and Alberta by virtue of the other regulations that are federal in nature, that are actually the ones that need to be dealt with prior to having a proponent even enter onto the scene with the concept of a pipeline. I hear the criticism that there's no pipeline proponent. Of course there isn't. Why would anybody want to put money into even proposing something when you already out of the gate, you know the regulatory hurdles you have to go through, which render it virtually impossible to be able to build a pipeline? So start with the regulations that are federal in nature and branch out from there. And
yeah, I mean, David Eby even bringing that up makes him look like an idiot. Like, he looks like he's trying to lie to Canadians and pull one over on us. We're not dumb. He's a snake.
At least I would just say to BC, it may not be a conversation now, but it will be a conversation at some point. And we have to think about what's in the best benefit of the Canadian Federation, not just what's in the best benefit of Albertans, Saskatchewanonians. I don't know what that.
Saskatchewanians, I believe. Saskatchewanians. Yeah.
Saskatchewanians. I'm so sorry, Scott Moe. I did not get that right. And British Columbians. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, Michelle, there's going to be a question of how loud that conversation is going to be. I wonder, is the federal government sort of taking steps to kind of call the question on a pipeline here, in that Alberta's argument has been it's your regulations, Prime Minister Carney, that are stopping this. It's like, okay, we'll get rid of the emissions cap on these conditions. We'll maybe give you exemptions on a tanker ban on these conditions. Now go find your proponent. Is this what is happening, do you think?
That's not going to be enough. No company wants to come into this crap hole of a situation. They want someone to come in like Trump did and get rid of a bunch of regulations like business is open, come on in. They want the saloon doors to swing wide open and the business to go, oh, we can make money here, let's go. Looking at Canada, it's like somebody cracked the door, like, oh, come on in, guys, come do some business. Like, no thanks, America's doors are wide open. But going back to what Lisa Raitt said there, this is a confederation. If David Eby wants to be a part of it, then he needs to play ball. Otherwise, he needs to get out of office because he's an activist loser. The guy's rolling out his agenda for what he wants, not for what we need. So jumping over to this other panel, they bring on Bob Fife, and well, they're mostly laughing about the Conservatives hiding behind the curtain, all this kind of stuff, just trying to discredit the Conservatives as they always do on CBC. But listen to this. Even Bob Fife, who just spent multiple minutes having a laugh about the Conservatives, rips into David Eby here.
Bob, are they working on an MOU with British Columbia? Because David Eby is unaware of one and said, you know, this is Daniel Smith's doing this because she's in trouble at home. I mean, there was fighting words from him earlier.
Well, I'm a little stunned that David, and he says he didn't know that they were talking about a pipeline to the Pacific West. Well, that's the whole point of the discussion.
I think what he didn't know was like how far advanced the MOU was, what it contained, and the fact that apparently Scott Moe is part of these talks.
Well,
we didn't know
that Scott Moe was part of that. Yeah. That is for sure. That was new to us. But everybody knew that because the Premier had come out days before to say, hey, we're making really good progress. And we're hoping to get something. If it's not by Grey Cup, which it didn't happen, we hope to have it by her convention convention that's going to happen next weekend. So it's not as if they didn't know. And if the Premier of British Columbia says he didn't know anything about this, why didn't he pick up the damn phone and call the Prime Minister? Or doesn't he have anybody in this caucus that can go and find out for him about this?
So David Eby has become a complete laughingstock. Nobody respects the guy. He's being laughed at on multiple panels here. He's not invited to any of these conversations.
Well, look, Lisa, in a world where the federal Liberals can throw the carbon tax under the bus, anything can happen, it seems, in 2025. But this calibration of insisting on a northern pipeline when there is the more southern TMX option on the table, and the calibration there to take the easy pipeline path and not risk the other projects in pursuit of a tougher pipeline path. I mean, is that a saleable thing to the people of Alberta?
Well, I mean, I'm not the people of Alberta, but I can tell you that I don't understand why you would have to say that we lose all of the projects in LNG and mining if we build a pipeline. I don't see that trade-off.
Well, the First Nations have said their consent for the LNG and mining projects is conditional on the preservation of the tanker ban. And the pipeline can't go ahead without at least a partial exemption and removal of the tanker ban. So they say they'll pull their consent if that happens.
Right. But I'm sure that there's negotiation that can always happen around these kinds of process these kinds of positions that are taken at the beginning. So I don't necessarily think it's binary that you have one or the other. I also would say in response to either or expand TMX or have a secondary pipeline, I'm in the why not both category. And I know that's probably not super popular, but the way I look at the Canadian economy right now, we have a very large problem in the medium and long term, and we need to have revenues flowing in this country. And as a result, we need to be able to tap into what we have naturally, which is oil and gas. And I'm not ashamed or afraid to say that publicly. I do think we can do this in an environmentally responsible way, taking into consideration all the concerns and get it done like we normally do in Canada. And quite frankly, our prosperity is at risk here.
She's 100% right. Our prosperity is at risk. So if you're going to say a couple thousand First Nation on the coast are going to put the prosperity of Canada, a huge chunk of money, billions of dollars coming in, at risk, that should just get overrided. Or they never get another transfer payment ever again, and we don't do a pipeline up there. We'll go somewhere else, and all the First Nations up there never get another dime again. You can't have it both ways. You can't get money from the government and block prosperity. Otherwise, you're not a part of Canada, period.
You know, this is exactly how Carney gets things done. The Prime Minister has shown that he's doing things in an incremental way, and he has a thought process, and he's not going to just create a table and have a bunch of people who don't agree as the starting point, right? And so I think it did start with Danielle Smith, and they've been having some conversations. It sounds from both sides that those have been progressing. Saskatchewan, as much as we don't think of it, they do have oil, and so they are an oil-producing province too. So you can see the logic in terms of bringing them in as the next kind of discussion. There are a whole bunch of trade-offs likely that have to be made for the federal government to even start to consider being a backer of this or opening it up to a possibility. And then, the next phase, without question, is going to be talking to BC. I don't think that anyone pretends that it's not. But, I think that we also should be aware that, when the Premier is out being very, very defined in terms of what his position is and what his position is going to be and how it is, and without showing any kind of room for a discussion, I'm not sure that is a great person to actually invite to the table right away. I don't see that being constructive. And so
this is hilarious. This is a liberal shill here. This is a Carney bootlicker basically calling out David Eby, saying that he's not someone they want at the table. This is humiliating. David Eby threw his tantrum there. Nobody wants to be friends with David Eby. No one wants to talk to the guy. No one even respects the guy. That's why he's not at the table. He's not respected. And when it comes down to it, Mark Carney doesn't need his blessing. He can just sign the papers and off it goes. He doesn't need him. David Eby putting his hands on his hips and putting his foot down doesn't mean anything. And he's just become a laughingstock here.
I think that that might be why his invitation's kind of lost in the mail for a little bit.
But Shachi, David Eby is sitting at a table with coastal First Nations and LNG companies and stuff, and the pipeline table is banging up against it, right? This is his concern, that there is a far advanced industrial agenda in British Columbia that he sees completely exposed to the risk of what is at this point a theoretical pipeline.
You know, there's a world in which this gets done that sees very cool political heads prevailing, that sees very gentle and skilled communication and a willingness of David Eby, Danielle Smith, and Mark Carney to not only work together, but also to communicate to people in as I say, a very skilled way. And then there is a world where none of that happens, because think about the personalities involved and the whole thing goes off the rails. So look, in the world where this happens, you take the fact that 56% of British Columbians say that they would be notionally supportive of a pipeline that goes from Alberta to the coast of British Columbia, which represents a decade-wide sea change in sentiment. It goes from basically only about a third of British Columbians back in 2014 saying that they would support a northern pipeline to now more than half. That is a huge, huge shift. It is also predicated on the idea that First Nations are supportive. It's predicated on the idea that the coast of British Columbia, the west coast of British Columbia, and particularly that inside passage, right? The really choppy waters where Nathan lives, very different than taking tankers out to open sea. Obviously, you never want to spill, but the potential for catastrophe is very high. So again, what are the conditions around that? Only about 22% of British Columbians support lifting a tanker ban altogether. Another 22% say we would do it as an exception. That's still not a majority. So, so many places for public opinion on this to shift in different ways. Danielle Smith is not, surprisingly, the most popular politician in British Columbia. And Mark Carney has so far started to...
Based on what? I mean, sure, the leftists here, she's probably got at least 35-40% support here. I mean, more than half the people she said it support a pipeline up there. This should go to a referendum. David Eby should not be making this decision. If it's this big of a deal, put it to a referendum.
Demonstrate a bit of, hey, listen to me. I'm a wartime crisis leader. I don't really have to go out and sell this. Those are problematic factors, and those are things that play into David Eby's hands. Here are the things that are problematic for David Eby. The BC Conservatives are sitting on a slight lead over the BC NDP. People are not exactly enamored of this government at the moment, and he should make no mistake about that.
Well, the BC Conservatives are also not enamored with the BC Conservatives.
Well, that's the
David Cochrane just waiting for that opportunity to take that. And yes, John Rustad should step down for what's going on there. His own caucus.
Only thing keeping the NDP propped up and whole at the moment. So he cannot go out and claim that the entirety of the province is against this. But, you know, a couple of the wrong words and the wrong moves from Ottawa and from Calgary and Scott Moe on this can shift things very, very quickly.
Yeah, Premier Moe, to his credit, was very measured, you know, and has had a very different tone since the last election. Really, he is really, you know, trying to make the First Minister's table work, and it's an interesting development to see. But
Scott Moe is incredibly neutral. He's incredibly calm and balanced. He praises Carney with the whole Brookfield deal that Donald Trump did with Brookfield Asset Management because it'll bring more business to Saskatchewan, even though it's going to enrich Carney. He tries to play nice with everyone. I mean, Danielle Smith's trying to do the same thing, but she's obviously does it a little more aggressively. But I mean, she has to. She's leading up Alberta, which is getting stepped on by the federal government for years now, decades.